we wanted something that was not part of the political process, just something that could be a way, a vehicle to get people involved. If you go back to '91 when this was happening, of course the state was coming out of a budget crisis. We didn't have a lot of, we had no extra money. We had a lot of red ink, as a matter of fact, in those early days. But we still, even with that, places like Michigan, there's still a lot of wealth there. There's still a lot of capacity, but you've got to be careful and you've got to manage that well. And so to create a mechanism, and I always said that the greatest strength of Michigan was the people. That the citizens who lived there had a certain toughness and resilience that if you gave them a chance, you gave them the opportunity, they'd show you what they could do. And I think that's true, whether that's in terms of getting the economy moving or in terms of solving community problems. And so this was that vehicle, and it began to knit together a lot of disparate efforts that were going on. And as Michelle said, the volunteer centers, I mean, they were out there, but they didn't, they were doing the best they could with what they had. But suddenly there's now a way to hear that this group is doing this. This was a good idea. Maybe that'll work in our area. Replicating success, sharing success stories. Those are the kinds of things that you get kind of excited about. You see that people are learning from each other, and more importantly, maybe they're inspiring others to get involved, and it grows over time. And I think that the leadership you had on the commission, you mentioned some of the names, but they're pretty spectacular.
They really are. And it was a means of creating a public-private partnership, really, with to bring some of the resources of government to apply to help some of these volunteer centers that were struggling on their own out there, to connect them maybe with some Department of Social Services resources that they might not be aware of, to connect them with other government agencies that may or may not be doing some of the same sorts of programs and that may or may not be effective. So it was a way of really creating some public-private partnerships at a time when government was struggling with the budget, but also, even had it not been, government is not always the best and most effective answer. It often is, people on the ground just pitching in to help.
I think we also had a philosophy too that we weren't afraid to have faith-based organizations involved. We weren't afraid to have different kinds of communities who maybe hadn't been in the mainstream involved or hadn't been central to solving problems. So it became a bit of a melting pot of different kinds of interests and communities and geographies. So it was really interesting that way.